All right. Welcome to The Capable Few. This is the first episode of this new show or podcast series. I'm thinking of this as conversations with those who can, as distinct from those who talk or who believe or who are convinced. And my name is Moritz Bierling. I believe that the capable few rarely see each other's full picture as well. A lot of people have very differing perspectives, experiences, beliefs about what they put their capability towards and how the world works. So I'm quite interested in exploring those in their own right, and then also how these founders, builders, strategists, or visionaries, where they align, where they don't, and also what might emerge when those perspectives meet and either conflict or have to be bridged somehow. So today I'm talking with my very first guest, Kristian Bell. He runs Wisdom Warriors on YouTube. He has written a book called The Psychology of Slaying Dragons, and he also leads the Retribalize project, which I have taken a look at and joined, since I'm also currently interested in setting the groundwork for, at some point in the middle distant future, create some sort of community, whether that be with families, whether that be with perhaps more of a educational or academy oriented one. And that's what Retribalize is oriented towards, offering people ways to meet others who are similarly interested in creating these kinds of new groupings, as well as giving them the tools to organize around that. And so we're both kind of working on converting atomized individuals into what you could call capable members of functioning groups. And I think we're doing it from slightly different angles, although I believe there is a lot of overlap. And so I'm kind of curious where we converge, Kristian. Where in general does this brotherhood focus that you've had for some time now come from? What happened in your life that made brotherhood seem like a powerful, perhaps tool or general context or life element? Like how do you think about that, and what happened in your life that this became to be that?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Moritz. I'm excited to chat with you about this. The idea of forming capable groups out of an atomized whole is probably it is the most inspiring thing in the world to me right now. And I think a lot of men out there are searching for meaning, are searching for where's my tribe? Where are my people? What's an ideal that adds a lot of inspiration and power to my life? And this is what we have to think about, right? How do we form capable groups again? So I guess maybe a little bit backstory of how I arrived at this mission here is when I was growing up, I existed within a high school, within a social structure that was given to me largely, right? And my basement basically turned into a salon, like a men's den, right? We had a ping pong table, a chess table, a pool table. And I would have 4, 5, 6 friends over every single night for all of high school. And I was never chasing women because I wanted to be a millionaire, right? So I wanted to build businesses and be valedictorian of my high school class and stuff. So in general, the people I surrounded myself with were striving. So one of my best friends in high school, he probably slept over at my house five nights a week every week for 4 years, right? And we played thousands of chess matches, thousands of ping pong matches, thousands of hours of homework, doing all these AP classes and stuff to get in a great college together. And I ended up going to Columbia University. He ended up going to NYU. So we were neighbors then. And I had this insane sense of brotherhood in that, in sports, in my, my high school basement, just really great male friends. And I took it for granted because when I dropped out of college in the first 3 weeks, I just went off into the frontier, right? So I had this spiritual awakening. I was really disillusioned, I guess, with our government, with our politics, with the dream of being some billionaire. I really didn't I was going to this school where the first week of it was identity politics being played out. It just wasn't a great environment for me. So I went off into, basically the wild, and I was traveling around. I was looking for my people. I was looking for friends, and I had a really, really hard time finding them, especially as a young man, 19, 20, 21, who's not going to a main stream college or something. It's where are the other young people? Where are they at? Right. So I know a lot of young men getting into the trades right now. And I'm yeah, it's a good path. Financially, it's more viable for sure. But it can be a huge hit to live in a small town when all the women and all the I guess higher talented young people are going off to school, and you can feel you're totally alone in that. So I was traveling throughout the deserts and stuff, and I ended up like integrating into a spiritual community, I guess, in like Durango. And right away, when I got to Durango, I met my martial arts teacher. Gonna keep forging on with the podcast. Yeah, so I met my martial arts teacher when I got to Durango, and I ended up living in his backyard, kind of like Karate Kid, for a few months there before he actually moved in with me. And like we started building this brotherhood circle around us. Fast forward, a lot happened. There's a lot happening in the past decade of my life, from like, heartbreaks to relationships to, building a brotherhood to having that kind of falling apart to building a new YouTube channel to the Men's Academy today. But ultimately, the one piece that's relevant for our conversation here is that when I went through this huge breakup in my life, right? I was with this girl for 4.5 years. I found myself in the desert alone, like hopelessly alone again. I'm like, damn, I'm not really bonded to one individual in the world, right? And like, I'm talented. I got good social skills. I'm interested in a variety of domains, and like, I want to build a new town. And yet I'm not bonded to a single person in the entire world. When I went through that breakup and I realized I was totally alone without deep bonds in the world, it really brought to the forefront how important brothers are, right? Because like women may come and go, political parties may come and go, ideas, communities may come and go, right? I've been transient through many of them. But the thing that remains is like brothers who are going the distance with you. The idea of linking destinies, the idea of like finding those guys who are like, yes, I want to go on the grand voyage with you, right? And so from that moment, I started really prioritizing like brotherhood, like men, friends, and ended up building this like really awesome community in Durango with my friend Cam, like a couple others, Jake, men I still love to this day, right? And the cool thing is, and the interesting thing is one of my best friend, right? He met me through my YouTube channel at the time. He moved out to see me. And from that point, we started doing sauna, cold plunge, hikes, music, meditation, like ceremony every day or every week, right? And we do that for multiple years. And it formed this like friendship of like going through life that felt really good. It felt like a flashback to what I had in high school, right? But then it came down to the fact that how are we actually going to like men need more than just hanging out together. And this is where a lot of like brotherhood groups and men's groups end, right? It's like, let's get together for the meditation. Let's get together for a hike. Let's get together for beers on Saturday. Let's get together to do like, and that's cool. That's a great step. But like, that is so deeply unfulfilling for what I know is possible, right? It's like this element of, hey, like, this is who we are. That's our ideal, right? And like we're going there together. It might sound romantic. I am a romantic soul, right? But there's something more than just hanging out on the Sunday. There's some element of like interdependence, belonging, shared meaning, shared purpose that's really important. But the difficulty is like, how do you actually create shared purpose in an atomized world where the only purpose left is these very individualistic tracks of like, hey, I'm going to make money to get my nice home, to have my nice family, and maybe make an impact in my community. Like that's like the old dream, like this hyper individualistic dream, right? And like it's just it for me, like I think it maybe is just the quality of my character, but that dream falls so far flat on its face for me. It's like that is nothing to me, right? Like I want a glorious like tribe, like that's all I want, like that's it, And yeah, like maybe that's too romantic for some people, but I think everyone deep down like wants a sense of like camaraderie going the distance with you towards something that is meaningful. How do you build that in such an atomized world? And this has been the question that has dominated my thinking for the last like 4 years of my life, right? Is like, how do we actually build like brotherhood towards a meaningful goal? And I think there's actually a lot of opportunity for that, which I'm sure we're going to talk about.
Yeah, that's a great lead into many different directions. I think one of the experiences in my life that is somewhat similar to what you've had, even though there's definitely differences. I grew up with 3 younger brothers, so I have kind of had the familial brotherhood, at least in the sense of having brothers. But there's a difference between having brothers as in kin and having brothers as in men, whether brothers familial or not, that you can rely upon for your life, for life and death, for economic interdependence, for serious life things that isn't automatically a given, unfortunately. So I am not currently in a place where with my brothers I have that kind of experience. Like I could probably call upon them for support. We offer each other help sometimes, but we're not integrated in a kind of constant interaction. I live far away from them. Like, they have a very different life path than I do. So very, very tangibly, brotherhood with my familial brothers is very much limited in that regard for now. Also, as my resources and capabilities are still in this intermediary stage of development. Now, on the other hand, I left my family and my country and continent, if you will, and even college in 2014 to go down to Chile and join this weird group of guys and sometimes girls at some point called Exosphere. And Exosphere used to be this kind of life and entrepreneurship community that was living in Viña del Mar, which is part of Valparaiso, founded by this guy called Skinner Lane. And it put on entrepreneurship boot camps, essentially, that had a very distinct philosophical bent to them. It was much more about actually engaging with and seriously playing at life, if you will, than kind of making a business or exiting a startup or kind of the more typical economic ventures that ambitious young people are fooled into believing will answer their questions about life and how to live in it sometimes. I remember one of the texts that Skinner wrote that deeply touched me and ultimately convinced me to go that ultimate distance kind of away from my familiar context was one where he essentially took apart this secular heaven, secular dream of either the dream job or kind of retirement as this ultimate attainment of heaven on earth, right? Like, oh, you don't have to work. Like, you can just exist as this ultimate thing you could to aim for. And for younger people, this promise of, I get the dream job, or like, I'm joining a company and I get to do meaningful work and have good pay and I'm around interesting people. And that is attractive, of course, but there's so much more out there or so much more possible than simply being in an interesting economic setting. Even the pension thing in particular is so spiritually dead. To aim for a state where you no longer have to kind of do something valuable for others and that be the apotheosis, the apex of your attainment, is just mind-boggling to me. And so you kind of have to wonder, how did we societally, culturally, civilizationally even arrive at a point where that is the case? So this
I have
kind of
an
where
interesting theory about that.
I want to hear it, and then maybe you go first, and then I'll tell you what I think.
Yeah, like what you just described, like this economic individualist dream of like existing with like more prosperity, freedom, like it actually makes a lot of sense if you're still living within a social structure, right? So when like America still had an identity of being American, right? Like, we're the frontiersmen, like we can do anything, we will pioneer the future, right? And your community still all went to church every Sunday. And there was still like this sense of like larger communitarianism within your town, national identity, like meaning on that scale. That dream was very viable. Like, welcome to the 1950s, right? There's this like large sense of like national pride, and it's essentially like what we're hitting up against today is like the big questions are completely unanswered. Like, what is God? What is meaningful? What is sacred? Who am I? Like what is purpose? What is virtue? These questions aren't answered by society. We have no more identity. So when we have no more identity, we don't ask the big questions, everything feels fucking meaningless, right? Especially once you do have success. It's like, oh, I'm sitting on a beach in Mexico with $1 million and like, some hottie is waiting for me in my room. And it's at that moment that you feel more deeply depressed than ever. Right?
Nothing is more depressing than looking at these crypto bros that got rich by no real virtue and then show off like, oh, I can live the laptop life on the beach with that girl. Yeah, exactly. Nothing is more spiritually deadening than that.
Yeah, and even they feel spiritually dead, right? Because like the moment that some rich person gets to that point, like, what are they wanting, right? All of a sudden they become a philanthropist, or they're like, go chase a whole bunch of women, or they get into this. They're like, how do we actually create meaning again? How do we create connection? So I think they're awake to it, but it is, when you win the game of today, it can be spiritually depressing, I think.
Right. Yeah. Well, one of my previous guests, Rogue, he has a lot to say on this in terms of surrogate behaviors or surrogate activities, kind of echoing Ted Kaczynski's analysis, right? Like that so many of so-called males or men are just immature males. And it's not even really their fault, right? Like, essentially, we have an entire set of generations now in the West, so-called West, that gave up actively leading young men to productive and pro-social roles that had a measure of authority alongside the responsibility that we so often ask of men to perform for little reward. And I think we have also seen this incredibly interesting attempt to integrate women on the large scale into the polity and political decision making. And with that has come a different expression of interests and tendencies that, on the negative side at least, has essentially told men that they no longer have a role and that they should just shut up and be good productive slaves for the socialist utopia that, yes, slay women will create if only men would kind of behave. And so we get this combined attack on male capacity, authority, role in society from that kind of negative standpoint, as well as the failure of the men to offer tangible, real, pragmatic ways into roles of responsibility and relationship and authority. And so I can't fault the young men in the sense that they didn't know, they don't know what to do. And I myself very much am a similar or have been somebody with that kind of pattern. Like I've sought responsibility. I've looked for answers to those big questions from very early on. But what do you do then in a secular society where the whole spiritual side is essentially taken out of the question? And I think, as we now know fairly conclusively from people like Pearson and others who study this in depth, like you can't actually remove the religious instinct and impulse from society. All you're ever doing when you're deleting it nominally is you shift it onto other institutions that then take on religious importance. And I think that that's definitely happened. And so I think in that sense, there is an element of how the cutting out of the spiritual dimension out of our society has led men to pour themselves religiously into the remaining avenues that are open, whether that be tech startup bro life or crypto or kind of any ways that you can go out of the existing structure to a frontier, and then in the frontier somehow like get far enough up in terms of status and resources that you perhaps have a shot at reproduction and perhaps something greater than that even. So I don't know, what do you think about this? Like, is it the fault of these young men themselves that they are in the position they're in? Did the people, the generations above us abandon us? Like, how do you think about this?
Well, to start with, there's always been the capable few that, regardless of what social structures exist, will go pioneer into frontiers. It's called being a pioneer, right? And like, if you have like that calling and spirit in your blood, it's actually, we live in the greatest opportunity in human history. It's like, welcome to the frontiers, right? There's like internet, building brotherhoods, building new social structures. Like, there's so many different things that we can like dedicate ourselves to. And I'm actually not averse to the crypto or startup bro. Like, that's also a frontier. Like, go do it, right? But in terms of like the mass, like meaningless, demise of masculinity in men, I was just on this date with this woman like last week, and she has 7 brothers, right? And most of her brothers are in like some kind of crisis right now, right? And her favorite brother, the most talented of them all, went to a great school, like studied like biology and physics, right? And is literally like smoking weed at home, drinking and playing video games, and is going through like a 22-year-old crisis right now, right? And she's like, what can he do? Like, what happened? Like, how can he get out of this? He's so talented and brilliant. And right there, it just shows you like, this is where men, like in general, like need a very direct ideal that society like helps them build. This was the original mythos of masculinity seen in every tribe, tradition, and culture across the planet. It's the fact that masculinity is generally measured by the exception, and it's measured by the heroic myth of that people, right? So if you're like, grow up in ancient Greece, every single day, you're going to hear stories of Achilles. You're going to hear stories of Heracles. There's going to be very clear paths to executing the ideal in your daily life, whether that is training harder with more arete, whether it's winning glory on the battlefield, winning glory in the Olympic Games, like debating and orating like Odysseus, right? There's like this very clear path to a cultural ideal available to all men, and all men are shepherded towards it. no matter where they fall on the spectrum of approaching it, doesn't so much matter. Is the fact that they are approaching an ideal, aka they have a meaningful goal to aim at, right? And this has always been the case. And even like if we look at like Lakota Native American tradition, like their idea was that becoming a man was the great impossible. And they would always tell stories of their great chiefs or their great men, their big men, and like this idea, like imagine growing up and every single day you are told this, right? Everyone knows it. Everyone celebrates it. And these men, they go do the great impossible of like the initiation, of being the great warrior on the hunt, the great warrior in battle, the great elder, the wise clan leader one day. All men are shooting for it, right? So when you lose this and you lose the hierarchy associated with the ideal, you lose everything for men because men love to rank up. This is man nature, right? So it's like if we're looking at Call of Duty or the military or startups or business world or all of it, it's like what do men like doing? They like ranking up in Call of Duty, right? They like beating bigger bosses in their video games, right? Where can a man rank up in a meaningful way today if he's disillusioned with economics individualist success, right? Like, where is his structure that he gets to rank up through? And this is the problem, right? Like, this is it. And maybe it's cool that we've like broken down from having a solitary ideal of like, you must become Achilles or you're a failure of a man. Maybe that's good. Or you must become Christ or you're a failure of a man. Like maybe that's good. Who's to say? Like maybe we need more cultural ideals again. But we've lost the systems of initiation and the systems of like ranking up towards that just leave the vast majority of men, especially the talented men who maybe aren't the pioneers but are nonetheless talented, without a very clear course.
Right. I guess the question then becomes, how do you do this practically? And I understand that you are very much intent on taking your understanding that you've amassed and that you articulate to your audience and applying it to a real world context, that you move about the world with other people, you work with them, you live with them, and you have plans for creating perhaps something like an academy or some kind of education institution. How are you going about that? Like, is economics first on your mind? Are you asking everybody in this group or in a group to have a shared ideal? Is it more kind of meta in the sense that everybody might have their separate ideals, but you all support each other in pursuing those separate ideals? Like, yeah, how are you thinking about that? And how are you practically engaging with these questions?
Yeah, great. Yes, I run like the Men's Academy. That's like our online men's, network. And for me, like the online sphere is building the outer network, which is like really important for all of us, right? I know you do the same thing. Everyone engaging like on the X space or YouTube, like what we generally need to use the internet for is the explicit intention of building the outer network to filter into real life. And yes, so like I'm traveling the world. I'm here with Steven. I just had a 4-bedroom house in Tulum with 5 guys as well. So like we're constantly, getting shared accommodations with guys from the network, or I'll reach out to influencers I really like. And like, I did a 20-minute call with my favorite influencer on Instagram and he came out for a week, right? Like there's this insane capacity we have right now to just reach out to someone like Maritz, right? I reached out to Maritz. We got on the call. Like the chances of me and Maritz meeting up in the next year or two is very high, like, 90%. Like probability. So we have this insane capacity to constantly build the outer network to filter into our inner tribe. And I mean, practically, like in terms of practicality for everyone here, most guys need roommates, right? Like if you need a roommate, why not find someone super highly aligned with you who's already part of a larger fraternal network, and then make that house into a co-living house within the network, right? So this is the goal of the Men's Academy, is how can we have hundreds of guys in a high trust network online manifesting into unique academy houses around the world, right? So we have like a couple guys living together in Costa Rica right now, right? They're more into like the psychedelic integration, health coaching world, which is great. That's one aspect I'm interested in. It's not my full ideal, but it's theirs. It's like the medicine health man that's like a vitalist in Costa Rica. Cool.
Right.
Like let's have that co-living house, right? We have another guy up in, Vancouver who's very interested in AI tech, the cutting edge of like new technologies, right? And he wants to build like a entrepreneur hub, right? So he has like he lives with someone that also is a tech founder, and they invite out guys from the college campus every year like one of the business students to come live with them, and they instantly create this like interesting entrepreneur hub every year, right? So there's this capacity that we have today to join fraternal networks or put up a billboard like we do on the internet of like, hey, this is what we're about. Like, come through, right? See if we
Right.
resonate, see if we connect. And if you do connect, there's this capacity to like meet and build the outer network to filter to find one co-living co-founder, right?
Right. Right.
So practically, like, this is where my mind goes. We don't even need to like business for sure. Second step, like economic engine, super important. But like, it's not even necessary, right? Like, you could just work your job as a carpenter or welder or mechanic or get a job serving beers. Like, that's what I did for many years. I bartended
Right.
2.5 days a week, paid my bills, and I constantly built brotherhood around me, right? So like, if you are a young man out there, all you really need to do is limit your expenses, increase your mobility, right? Somehow, whether that's through savings, starting a side hustle, right? And then find someone through your outer network that you really resonate with and start creating co-living spaces. And like, guess what? In the beginning, you're going to fail. Like, you're going to pick the wrong people. There's going to be like clash. There's going to be conflict of interest. There's going to like, like I've outgrown and grown through so many communities, but I'm at this point where I'm like, okay, I understand what it's going to take to like actually build stuff in the real world. And like, the difference between what I want to do and what most people are doing is like, I am so bullish on the fact that we can filter the whole world through the internet. So if you want to start like a real parallel movement or parallel society or parallel institution, it's not just Johnny and Tommy down at the bar with you, right? It's like you can find the best people who feel and think just like you and organize in real life. This is insanely powerful. Like, you can build a bowling ball down a mountain. Like, if you put together a team of the capable few of 10, 15, 20 guys who are all creating co-living spaces with their wolf packs, right? And then you come together and make a bigger project, like, this is how you can change the world. So
I love it. I love it so much. Yeah, I have recently also really gone deep on thinking of the internet not as the place to be, but as the infrastructure or the frontier to like find people and then bring back into real life. Or like, I sometimes think of it as like the infrastructure for doing other things, and these other things are the ends, but this is the infrastructure that you really should use to that end. I just see so many people get stuck in the frontier without any people that they can hunt with, and without orientation, without skills of trapping and so on, essentially spending their lives on the internet in this passive consumptive way. And I think that's the failure mode that I'm incredibly attuned to, because I was that guy to some extent. Like, I was the guy who absorbs information without end and then has trouble applying it practically to his own circumstance. And in that sense, that's really what I'm working to do with Modern Minuteman, is to take people from this general, atomized, disoriented, confused, passive stance and reorient them, put them in touch with interesting people, open their mind to the powerful narratives and visions that are floating out there by capable people, by capable few, and then to my part in kind of resorting them into the appropriate contexts where they can actually practically move forward. Because I think that is essentially what this modern world has done. It by creating these incredibly powerful states and state machineries, bureaucracies, we've externalized all of the functions of a community to an impersonal machinery that nominally is supposed to be charged with our defense and our cultural well-being and our economic prosperity, but because of the distance that it has to us individually and as small groups, and then with its charge being over so many disparate groups, it ends up losing its original charter, if you will, or its original mission, and simply becoming yet another organism that defends its own existence regardless of the interests that it is supposed to serve. And so I think this is where we are currently collectively relearning the very basic human competencies that used to be essentially universal and agreed upon and not even worth commenting on because they were so assumed. We, largely due to the Industrial Revolution, partially due to these political changes and kind of our technologies that have come about, we forgot what it really means to be somebody who has core human competence and who exercises it on a daily basis and who does so in a collective setting with others who he shares interests with. Partially also because we're no longer actually living in tribal or village-like communities where there is a continuity of relationship with other people over longer periods of time. And so we're kind of reshuffling everything around this new infrastructure of the internet that allows things that happen on the other side of the world to affect how I'm thinking and living right now. So I agree with you. It's a unique challenge and also a unique opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah, I like your point actually about like the size of the state being the thing that makes us feel so atomized and like disconnected from maybe meaning. Um, like, because I think about sitting in a symposium in ancient Greece, and of course I always imagine myself as the aristocrat, but perhaps I'd be the slave serving the symposium. But I think I would somehow end up taking my own life or becoming an aristocrat. Either way, so let's say you're sitting in a symposium in ancient Greece. You feel like your debate in that symposium, swaying the minds of others, actually has some measure of influence on the political body. That your ideas in the assembly can actually move things, right? That your network and like your, how you engage in the economy, like how you engage in the culture, how you prepare, your people for war, X, Y, and Z, these things actually have meaning to the whole, right? And even if you go to a smaller tribal setting, the same thing, like being just like a man on the, a good man in the tribe, you're going to get respect and status, and you're going to be able to influence the tribe in meaningful ways. The bigger the organism gets, the more disconnected you get from direct, meaningful action. This is like what really creates, I think, the problem. And it's actually why I think if we go back to the highest points in Western civilization being, maybe the golden age of Greece, the Renaissance, both of those took place in city-states, right? Like it seems to be like when there's a city-state model, there's enough incentive to like achieve like distinction and capacity to influence the thing that it actually calls up the best men, right? When we live in this like super impersonal, huge society, the best men I know are leaving it, right? They're trying to like go do something else. They're trying to like oppose it, right? And I think this gets in like Peter Turchin's idea of like the counter elite, right? It's like the guys who could have rose to the top, but like didn't want to, right? Are like, or like they couldn't get past like all the red tape or something, right? It creates this huge problem. So I do think that the bigger an organism gets, the like it's just it really disconnects people from meaning. And then like, how do we actually exist in a tribe again, right? This is gonna be hard. Like we have a lot of work to do in front of us, right? Because I can make it sound romantic, like yeah, like living in a tribe. Let's build an academy. Let's build new towns. But it's like, well, realistically, like you're only gonna really, really like a few people, right? You're gonna like maybe like 50 people, but you also like you're gonna not like quite a few people.
You're going to
like,
have obligations
no matter.
to people that you might not like, and you'll have to exercise them anyway.
Yep. Exactly. So it does get interesting on this frontier. Although I do think like we do have the insane capacity to filter like never before.
Mm-hmm.
So I think my fundamental thesis is that the tribes, the villages, the towns, and the cities of the future, if you fundamentally focus on like what quality of people you want and excluding or filtering all else and having clear rites of passage into that network, that like you really don't need that much like bureaucratic systems. Like bureaucratic systems exist to like be imposed over the masses, right? But like if you're collecting the capable few into your wolf pack, like if you just focus on that and focus on a clear ideal and clear initiation or filtration process on like who you're gathering, we're going to create really cool stuff and a very diverse like array of different projects, I think.
It's definitely. And I think there is a question around how do you find the right ones? Like, is for you like the religious identity the primary one, or are you somebody who's just like, I'm not speaking necessarily about you, but like in general, like people who are thinking about this or who want to do this, like do they prioritize that religious identity? Do they look first for people who are just competent? Are they, does it really not matter? Is it really just about gathering some of the experiences, putting themselves out there into the unmediated world in some sense, and kind of blooding their nose so that they actually learn real world, in a real world sense, what it takes to build strong relationships? And many things you just can't think your way out of or into, right? Like this is the I think the inevitable failure mode and limitations that you run into when you are an perhaps intellectually and analytically gifted and interested person like myself. Like you cannot win just by thought alone. You have to act. And so this is, I think, the question, or not really the question. This is the simple answer. It's to do something and then to learn from your action and just continuously adapt. And you are going to have problems. You're going to run into slimy people. You're going to be probably taken advantage of. And hopefully it won't be catastrophically so that you cannot pick yourself up again. But yeah, you have to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, in terms of filtration, you just nailed like the first thing I filter for. It's capacity. Like do you like can you do it? Like can you act? Can you build something? Right? And it's amazing is like some of my best friends, I actually have a lot of grief around it, is like they couldn't come with me, right? Because they literally couldn't come with me because if a man isn't capable, he's not useful on a team. And if you're not useful on a team, you're not useful as a man. Like that's just like especially in brotherhood. Like brotherhood is based off capable men going together. So it's like if you can't pull twice your own weight, like that's probably the first thing to look at, right? Can you build something? Like, I had this guy that was really gung ho on like building brotherhood and like wanted to build new towns. And like I tried to have him build a thumbnail for me and he couldn't do it. Right. And I'm like, wait, if you can't design a thumbnail, like how are we going to design a new city? Right. Like I
Right,
need you to be
right.
like, I need the capacity and agency and execution to be like God level on the thumbnail. Like, you know, like if we're going to go build a new city.
In some
Like,
sense, I believe actually that due to this single fact alone, we, the so-called parallel kind of builders or
yeah.
so on, so far deserve our fate as not being in charge because we simply do not currently yet display the capability of governing our relationships, organizing our groups, running economic engines, and so on at the level of like not just a tribe, like let's put that to the side, like nation states and civilization scale, right? Like this is not something that you do willy-nilly and on vibes. And so I think this is sometimes where I get frustrated with people who are very loud online, but who criticize the men in the arena, but who don't do anything in their own real life. I mean, I personally, as part of my affiliation with the Natural Law Institute, we ran into this as well. Like we tried to essentially offer the so-called disaffected right, or sometimes the kind of the lost boys, as we sometimes like to call them. We try to organize them. We try to offer them a umbrella within which they could work together with others to pursue their political interests. And the first thing you learn when you try to do anything politically or otherwise, you have to put some measure of your own interests aside in order to work with others who have differing interests. And they were not willing or prepared or able to do that even to the minutest degree. And so you just run into this problem of the people out there that are very loud, that say they have the right ideas and that are clamoring for representation and perhaps for on-ramps to power and development, they are often their own worst enemies in actually getting that support and getting that representation and those. I know you ran into this with this one guy. I assume you've probably had other experiences as well that were like that. Like, have you found anything that perhaps offers people like that an actual tangible path that they are willing to take? Or do you just have to let them fall by the wayside and essentially produce in them this anxiety that they're going to be left behind unless they put aside their childish toys and join the people who are actually doing something?
Yeah, I mean it's a great thing. Like in terms of like who I invite in to like, come with me and like, build in real life or, hang out in real life, I am looking mainly for capacity. Like even over like capacity first, I think like character and like alignment second. And when it comes to capacity, the interesting, like maybe that guy I use in that example, maybe his like strength isn't thumbnail design, right? Maybe it's like building, building infrastructure or buildings or sheds or whatever. That's fine, but he needs to like know his zone of genius. The really tough challenges today, like if we actually really want to get some of these things going, you do need multifaceted people, right? That are like, hey, I can like build the thumbnail and the shed. Like that's who I want, right? I need like very high capacity, someone. And also like, But also, I think like for men out there, like finding your zone of genius, like finding the thing that you can add a lot of value to and honing in on that is great, right? And this is why like a lot of people, like my explicit goal is to build the next great town. Like that's what I want to do in the next 15 years of my life. I want to build an incredible town in the United States around an academy with outposts all over the world. That's my goal, right? The moment I say that goal, people are like, well, what are you going to do about like the economics, right? What are you going to do about the infrastructure? Are you going to rely on, the centralization of industry? Like, what are you going to do about the politics, or how are you going to organize the agriculture? And it's funny because anyone asking those questions, it reveals to you where you're actually most interested in. When I tell you I'm going to build that, like when you ask the problem, that's the problem you're supposed to solve, probably, right?
Right, right.
And the second thing is, I don't give a shit. I literally don't care, because guess what? I talk to experts in all of those fields every single year. It doesn't matter, right? Like all that is required is that you can build a network of people who are capable in their zone of genius and then get them together, right? Because like I don't need to know about permaculture and agriculture. Right? My best friend like has run farms his whole life and can't wait to move there, right? So it's like this is the other thing is like maybe I'm giving a variety of answers to one question, but like I think honing in on your zone of genius and generally like building your network, finding one like really close friend who wants to link destinies with you, and then learning how to engage in a larger body without all like the ideological like autism, basically.
Right, 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 right.
That's what we need to do.
I like it. Yeah, very, very good. Do you consider, I mean, you shared earlier that you had a date with a girl. Like, how does family play into this for you? Are you like looking to start a family soon? Like, because oftentimes this is also the excuse people throw in that like, oh, if you can't attract families, then you're probably going to fail. Or if you have people that have families, they are naturally less likely to be mobile due to those limitations. So does this play into your thinking at all?
Absolutely. This is where I think my thinking diverges like drastically from network state people, and like some of the crypto bros. Is obviously like a culture and legacy is going to come from family, right? So like you have to think in terms of that. But it's also families don't go settle into they don't go pioneer the new town, right? Like you need the pioneers first and then the families to follow on the trail like with their wagons after to like come build it, right? So like in the beginning, I need people who can move quickly, who are capable in a variety of domains, who can build economic engines with us to like go strike out. But I have many people in the men's academy and in my like some of my best friends, right? Like my farmer best friend I was talking about, he has two kids, right? Great wife, runs a vineyard. He can't wait to come, right? But he just needs the space first, right? I have other guys in the men's academy. He's not going to build us a great app, but he's amazing at running community events. He's trying to start a Renaissance festival. He's deep into men's work, rewilding, things of this nature. Amazing to have as like the community neighborhood leader, has a couple kids, right? So like you bring in like these types of families, like those men like deeply want what we're talking about. How do you have like a village to like raise kids with, right? How do you have like brotherhood that has meaning? But you can't like, I think leading with the family, you fall into the homesteading fallacy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like these like libertarian homesteaders, like love them to death. They're doing great work out there trying to like earn sovereignty from the system, but they have a serious talent. They have a serious scaling issue. Is
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't want to be a farmer. Right. And a lot of guys like don't want to be farmers. And if you like build your entire identity around an agrarian identity, like you are instantly opposing yourself to top talented people. Right, from a variety of fields. Like you're not going to attract a great scientist if you have like this like homesteading, like back to nature. Like I don't want to return to the agricultural revolution. Like I want to move past the digital revolution, right?
Mm.
So like not to critique, like I think
Yeah.
people who are going back to like homesteading or something, that's a great avenue because the only one really left to us in many ways. But I don't think it's actually the real solution. Like the real solution is like pioneering something new.
Right. Yeah, I think one of the fault or one of the failures of prior attempts and kind of waves of intentional communities, let's say, in my understanding, has been that they have tried to create these well-bounded internal versus external kind of spaces that like here's where our utopia or our socialist heaven or our hippie heaven or our libertarian heaven like takes place and and they separate themselves from the larger context of society and thereby produce all kinds of bad incentives, whether it be cult dynamics or people simply dropping out to go back to where their family actually is, or any number of things, like not figuring out how to do this economically well. And so what I'm seeing right now that is changing in, or is different in the approaches that a lot of the people that I'm talking with that are interested in this kind of direction, how they think differently about this is that we're not trying to separate ourselves entirely from the larger context of society. In fact, we're planning to be active in it, but with the added context of having a kind of stronghold, not like that is exclusively populated by our people, that is often very difficult to accomplish, especially in the short term, but to just have close ties with a couple of people or a couple of families in a particular location, whether it be in a town or a village or a city, so that your life takes place in this communal but not isolated complex kind of context. How are you thinking about the town thing? Like, are you like saying you're gonna create a town at a place where there's no town yet? Like, what is your plan there?
Yeah, well, I really like what you're saying is like, I'm not trying to build this in like as like a silo, right? It's like, how can we, like, this is why I think the idea of like a parallel institution, a parallel society is very interesting to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a huge error to actually like go completely against the social contract of the day, because you're going to cut yourself off from a lot of people who would otherwise like support you, right? This is, yeah, I have some critiques of certain communities because of that. And yeah, so like whatever you want to do, like I support anyone who's trying to retribalize in any way, right? Like I generally, like, this is why we built the app, like retribalize.ai. It's literally like, if you want to start that hippie commune or you want to start the tech utopia, like use, like, you can use this app to find the most aligned people and teams in the world to come to do it with you, right? And we're still developing this app. We have like 4 amazing developers on this right now. So yeah, this is gonna be like the infrastructure to like actually find the people. It's like, for instance, like I'll do calls with hundreds of guys all over the world every year. It's crazy that 70% of the time, 70%, here's an average call. Hey, I live in Toronto. I've sold insurance, for a while. I have a pretty good income, like maybe makes 100K a year, and I'm Christian. And I want to go build like a Christian compound on the outskirts of Toronto. Do you know anyone else I could do that with? And I'm like, well, if you had an app that could just like match you with the other 5 Christian compound builders, great. Like, go do that, right? Another like really common story is like, hey, I'm like 24. I'm really I was gonna be like high up in the military or school. I'm really disillusioned with everything going on. And I'm like trying to find, my people, or like, if you could get on an app that like matches you with the other 25-year-olds who are like wanting co-living spaces in Florida with you, like that would be lit, right? So this is kind of like what we're building. Yeah. So got off on a little tangent there, because everything we're talking about is tribe entrepreneurship, right? Like, this is the frontier, right? It is that. In terms of how you were asking about the town, like, am I going to buy a town? Am I going to renovate a town? That was your question, right?
Yeah,
what
like
we're
are
gonna
you
do there.
intending to like build it from scratch, or like be part of an existing place and like just revitalize it, or yeah?
Yeah. I don't mean to be like abrasive, but like, this is another one of those questions. Like, I don't
It doesn't
care.
matter. Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, fair
Like,
enough.
the
I
only
guess
thing
I
that
just
matters to
signed
me is
up to be the guy who plans that for you.
exactly. Like, it doesn't matter to me, because someone is like really passionate and already like, I almost guarantee you someone listening to me already has like a freaking huge compound on the outskirts of some dead town in Wyoming, right? Like these things don't, they're periphery details.
I
Like, the
love it.
thing that matters is that I continue to travel. I'm like traveling the world and like continuing to get in co-living spaces with dope guys, right? And like just like continuing to do that, to build a team.
I want to double
Yeah.
click on this briefly, just because essentially what I see us doing is doing the primary thing, which is to develop your capacity to judge character and to build relationships with those who display good character, right? And I've said for about a year now, like a bit more than a year, that what I see as the primary skill that people need to practice is to learn how to recognize their betters when they stand before them. And I don't mean this in a like a negative sense of like, oh, you're shit and like you just should follow something. Like, it's more like, if you kind of recognize when somebody is better at you than something in a particular domain, it doesn't mean that they're better in every way, then you have no serious pragmatic way of orienting yourself towards what is better or higher, right? And that is really the fundamental skill, right? Like you need to figure out what is higher for me, for my group or whatever, and to continue going down that direction against all challenges. And so oftentimes actually the thing that I tell people alongside many other things is figure out who's already doing something that you think is great and talk to them or make yourself useful to them or otherwise orient towards how do I learn how to do that or how do I support that guy doing that. And so I guess in that same spirit, I want to ask you the second to last question, which is what would be useful to you right now? Like from me, from this audience, from other capable people listening, like what could really be useful to you from them?
I think the most useful thing to me is guys who have some location freedom or have space around the world, like you have extra space and are super aligned with this, right? As like, because man, if there's 25 to like 40-year-old men who have location freedom and are like, hey, I'll come get the Airbnb next to you guys, right? Like or with us. Like my kind of vision for the next year immediately is to network with as many high capacity people I can, and like not just online, but like for weeks or months at a time in real life. Because if we want to do any of this, it needs to be built on super high trust, like high integrity relationships. So I'm constantly offering guys to come out and see me. We always have an extra room. And I think if you have space to do that, that's great. I mean, we're always looking for investors in our app as well, like Retribalize app. Yeah. And like, developers, like, I think what you just hit on is super important and super difficult today is like, how can you recognize if someone is further along than you and maybe join them? What does joining forces actually look like? This is hard. This is so hard to do, right? Because like we're aligned. We're going a very similar direction, right? Like how do you actually keep driving your project? I keep driving mine, but like how can there be alliances? And this is something we all need to like really think about. Maybe some ego checks and humbling can take place around this, like, on what we can do. I know for me, like if someone is a leader and they're intelligent and stuff, like generally they have ideas about like their CEO. It's like you can't have, like you need a lot of CEOs, but it gets really tricky. And we live in this age of like the solo entrepreneur, right? It's like, oh, I'm just going to do it myself, right? And like, it's tough, but like we have to break that mold somehow. Like we cannot build something truly of scale, of like beauty and meaning and like, like legacy, like by ourselves. Like we need to unite leaders together somehow.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's leading us well into the last couple of minutes before we close. I think the thing I wanted to pick up from earlier briefly is just, I think the modern liberal democratic state in some sense functions like a smokescreen. And what I mean by that is it puts up this show or theater performance that people follow, the spectacle where there's kind of in this pro wrestling manner of like there's this guy and that guy and these factions and like look how important the spectacle is and pay attention to it, and all the while you're putting your attention far away from your personal life. Around you can be robbed blind, and collectively we are being robbed blind, and kind of our commons are being destroyed successively. And so in this sense, what I tell people who come to my project or who talk to me is refocus your energy intently on your direct relationships and the things, of course, directly in your control to some extent. And oftentimes that actually consists of lowering your ambitions in the very short term down to what can I produce? Like in this next half hour, in this next week, like first exercise your creative muscle to set an outcome or objective that you're pursuing, and then hit that goal. And if you don't hit that goal, it's an indicator to you that you haven't integrated all of the aspects of your life in such a way that you can reliably estimate what you are capable of, and then attain that objective. And then you lower your objective again a little bit, and until you hit it reliably like 2 or 3 times in a row, and then okay, now it's time to set my sights higher, right? And of course this shouldn't be an excuse to now not work with other people. I think this should go in kind of two tracks side by side. I think that's also my answer to the question I asked you earlier, which is it isn't that you need to develop yourself first and only then reach out to people, or reach out to people first and then develop yourself. These things can happen simultaneously. But you need both of these things in order to not fall into the two failure modes of either kind of being the solipsistic autodidact that makes all of the mistakes for himself again, nor the one who is just following a group and kind of learning a new normative structure and not actually developing his own capacities inside of it so that he can climb to superior positions in that sense. So I guess the last question before we go, well, where can people find you? Should they reach out to you for things? And what do you offer to them to kind of go down this road?
Yeah. Well, before I get there, one thing I'm just thinking of that might be really helpful for all men here is like, if you are capable and you feel like you're a leader in your life, the feeling of like, is this my project? Is this someone else's project? Who's the leader here? These things can get kind of heady, right? I remember when I started my brotherhood group in my young 20s, like I was like, man, I brought all these guys together and like I am the leader here. But it was like I guess what I'm saying is the guy who just like takes action, keeps taking action, you automatically become the leader in a way. And the thing is like, I don't want followers. I don't want members in my community. Like my expectation of someone, if you want to like become my great friend, and that's what I want someone walking beside me. I want someone who becomes my equal or is my equal, right? And shit, if you're already ahead of me, great. Like I will march right by you until I become your equal. Like that's like my whole mentality, right? And like this is this idea of like intrapreneur, right? Instead of everyone trying to like go start your own thing, if you're not ready to do that, if you don't have a very clear fuck yes target market, everything that like is set up for you, it's like just become an intrapreneur. So my friend Brendan, who's my co-founder, who basically has equal share as me, like to so many things we're building, right? Like he just started in the men's academy and he's like, yeah, can I start running your philosophy call? And I was like, yeah. He runs at like a Stanford level course, like right off the bat, right? Like a Stanford level course, right? And then I'm looking for a CTO to like help build this app. And like, I'm like going through these guys, they all suck. And then Brand's like, I could build it, you know? And I'm like, wait, you're a developer? He's like, I taught myself full stack this last year, you know? And I'm like, great, like build it, right? He does an excellent job. Everything he does it really well. And like now he's like my co-founder, like marching right beside me, right? So it just shows you like Brendan never had to become like an entrepreneur, and now he is an entrepreneur, right?
Right.
So it's just this idea of like just do things really well, like learn from people. Let's just get the ego out of the way on some of these things. I have a huge ego, but hopefully I can always humble myself if I'm in the presence of a mentor for sure.
Right.
And like things will shake out how they're meant to shake out. Like we just have to go. So on that note, like in terms of, you know, joining me, coming with us, two things here is like I do run the men's academy. And you can always find that through my YouTube channel, Wisdom Warriors. Wisdom Warriors, I talk about a lot of the personal development, the spiritual development behind leaders. It's self-actualization for leaders. And then the app and the main project I'm very excited about is the Retribalize project. Our app is retribalize.ai. The entire philosophy YouTube channel app, it's around how do we create tribe entrepreneurs again, right? Like how do we create real people doing shit in real life? And I think you were very good on your diagnosis of the problem is like this chronically online spectacle when I'm like, how many of these leaders like have a startup and like have a political team in real life? Like if those people, that's what I really care about. So so retribalize.ai and then my YouTube channel, Wisdom Warriors. And Moritz, thanks so much for having me on, dude. This has been a pleasure and it's great to get to know you.
I appreciate you coming on, being my first guest to try this new framing out on. And I guess I'll send us off with a short comment on what you just described, which is so dear to my heart as well, which is this. I had my own kind of awakening experience 6 years ago. I had like a 3-month long flow state period. And in this kind of dynamic Osho meditation that I did, like at like minute 7 of the second phase, this like sentence popped into my head that said, I am a meta missionary. I convert people to their own cause. And so that kind of statement has been still to this day the best encapsulation of what I do as well, which is I'm not trying to recruit you to my cause. I'm trying to have you be so fucking clear on your cause that we can actually cooperate on where that overlaps, but you're solidly going in that direction that you yourself know you're going. So in that spirit, I invite all of my listeners and audience to check Kristian's work out. Check out his YouTube videos. They're excellent kind of warrior philosopher channeled articulations of what really drives us underneath all of this stuff and kind of go forth and conquer. You can find his resources as I showed them earlier. I'll put them in the description as well. And let's do this thing together. Appreciate you coming on.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.